Welcome to this week's Ask EMBN show. We're talking about lots of things this week. Kids bikes, bike racks and batteries, all coming up in this week's show.
Elmer, eyes as well. Got my Turbo Levo 2019 coming next month. Can't wait.
Nice.
Yeah, goodbye. Do you think it's possible to transport it on my Thule 591 roof rack carrier if I take the battery out of it before securing?
Good question.
Yeah.
The limit of the rack is actually 20 kilos.
Have you looked that up, have you?
Yeah, I've been researching my racks, but it's 20 kilos for the rack, so you're going to be right on that limit with the high-end S-Works Levo, so that's 19.9 kilos. I'm guessing if you're going to go for a model below that, then it's going to be slightly heavier. I don't know the exact weights, but obviously it's going to be a slightly heavier bike. So
I'm actually thinking maybe it might be a better option to get a bike carrier which mounts on the rear of your car, on the on a tow bar, or one that hangs off the rear tailgate, because it's going to save you lifting that bike up in the air to get it onto the top of the car every time. So, but I think a better option.
Yeah, it could be. And if you do want to stay with that rack, I would take the battery out, secure that somewhere nice in the car, then weigh your bike, see if it is under 20 kilos. If it is, then I think you'd be good to go, assuming that the clamp gets around your down tube. All right, if it's secure, then there's no reason. I don't think that there's no problem using your current rack.
And maybe if all else fails, maybe to take your e-bike out on a ride with the battery discharged. There's no charge in the battery, or it'll be easier when you come back from a ride as well, when the battery's flat, right?
Yeah, lighter, aren't they, when it's flat?
That's lighter, yeah. Zuri asks, that bit about energy recovery got me thinking, maybe using the legs to recharge your battery isn't a good idea, but what do you think about using a dynamo hub to get some charge in the downhill?
Good question. I think the problem with a dynamo hub is that it's going to take a lot of resistance, to charge up as well. I think the amount of return that you're going to get from that system isn't going to be enough to charge a battery. It's going to be very negligible on the down. So adding that resistance to an e-bike isn't a good idea in the first place. As I say, very little return on that system. So probably a no-go.
Brandon Dolan asks, can you guys do a bike shootout, Specialized Turbo Levo versus Canyon versus Pivot, etc.? Well, we don't actually do reviews on the EMBN, but what we do, I think, is actually give way more information than what a review would do, such things as how to choose the correct size bike, what motor, and also some inspirational pieces as well. So the thing with reviews is, a lot of the time people actually choose an e-mountain bike based on what it looks like and the budget and what's available. Reviews can be, they can be very sort of subjective, and it depends where the test was done. Does that apply to a different environment? So hopefully on EMBN, there's actually much more for you to check out.
But if you do want to check out a Levo in a lot more detail, Steve's had a really good close look at one. Video's playing now.
The mood of the Levo remains. It's always been about living for the ride, not riding for the levers, the buttons and the relays. So you can still be minimalistic or modular. You can either have a clean cockpit or one with displays. The choice is yours.
Chris, Wookie Wooly?
Wookie Wooly, my question is, do they make e-bikes for kids that are 10 to 12-year-olds? If so, I'd love to get someone to join me out on the trails.
Absolutely, great idea. Why not? And there's lots of great kids bikes on the market. Hi Bike do a 24-inch kids bike, but one of our favourites is from a company called Orbea on the outer edges of Malabia in Spain, and they do an EMX 24.
Yeah.
I don't think it's available in the UK, but lots of other countries in Europe do it.
So this one is in from Crazy Dirt Biker. You guys never talk about the Stealth Bomber, which in my opinion is the best e-bike of them all. I assume it's because it's too powerful for you. Did I mention it as energy return as well?
Too powerful. Yeah, well, obviously you want us to bite to that question. Too powerful. Well, if it's a personal question, I guess me and you have ridden motorcycles all our lives, so it's not too powerful. But I think the main point is that they're actually illegal to ride on the trails that we ride with, like 4,500 hub drive, 50 mile an hour. So I think what EMBN is about mountain bikes and not motorcycles. So
still has pedals and cranks on the Stealth Bomber, but it is a totally different class of bike as to what we ride.
But yeah, it is more powerful, as simple as that. But
closely more related to it. It's basically a motorbike with pedals on, basically. So it's not something that we're particularly interested in on the channel.
Steve M1 asks, I've noticed a difference between my Shimano display distance and GPS distance. This means the motor cuts off around 14 mile an hour instead of 15.5. Do you know if this is normal? And is there a way of altering the bike's speed sensor to correct this?
Yeah, I know it's happened on a few bikes. My dad was on about this recently. And the way he rectified it was the speed sensor magnet as well. It just slid slightly down the spoke, so it thinks the wheel's actually smaller than what it is. So you can just adjust the spoke magnet and just see if that makes any difference.
What kind of tolerance to
We're talking millimetres, so don't go crazy like sliding it right up the spoke.
So I didn't actually know that. So a 10 millimetre gap on the sensor is going to make difference in the speed, right?
Basically, yeah, how far up the spoke it is. Because you imagine like a wheel, like a measuring wheel. Obviously, if you're closer to the middle, it thinks it's going further.
Have you been moving my sensor on my Canyon?
Yeah, you were looking slow the other day, right?
And there's actually a video on common e-bike problems which Chris has done, and it's just coming up right now.
Another problem you might be experiencing on your e-bike is that you're all set, you're ready to go, your battery's charged, your display's all lit up, and you go to pedal away and the bike provides a little bit of assistance for a couple of cranks, then all of a sudden dies off. It might also be accompanied by the speed reading on your display not coming up, just displaying 0 miles an hour. It's all down to this little thing on the back wheel not being in the right place. This is a spoke magnet, and what it does in relation to the speed receiver on the swing arm is to determine how fast the back wheel is going.
Kula Shika asks, first of all, guys, love your show and you're doing a really great job.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Second, I do not know if this has been addressed before, but could you do a video about bike carriers, racks, especially suitable for e-bikes? There aren't that many racks that are specifically made for e-bikes, particularly those for which you do not need a towing hitch to be fitted to your car.
So you're talking about a normal kind of strap-on style rack.
Will those take the weight?
Yeah, well, this one that I've checked out is from Rally's. Perezzo does range of e-bike racks. They can handle 65 kilos on there, so a lot of weight. So there's, 2 or 3 e-bikes on there, especially if you remove the batteries.
Yeah, but it's not too difficult to fit a tow bar to your car, right? I mean,
no, it's obviously a bit more cost involved. These things, I think they're about £150 for these racks. They're pretty good value.
Yeah, but a tow bar, a tow bar carrier can take the weight of a trials bike.
Exactly,
so is that a good option? I mean, I've got a van myself, but
yeah, I think if I was going to be doing it a long time, then I would stick probably a tow bar mounted rack on there. But it's a cheaper option if you haven't got the storage for that tow bar mounted rack. And these things obviously fold up. A lot less
just out of interest, Chris, how much is that Rally bike rack there?
£150.
All right.
So
okay.
yeah, it's
I was going to say buy a cheap.
But
some of those racks you might as well buy a cheap van, right?
Yeah. Have a look online. There's lots of options over there. Just make sure you've got something that suits your car.
Yeah. Dukesy TV, Chris.
Great show. I'm looking into getting an e-bike. I currently have a 2011 Demo 8 in large with 447mm reach. I ride mainly trails and do some jumps, but nothing that big. I'm 6'4" and I've been looking at the Merida 160. What do you guys think of that bike? What size do you think I would need? And do you think I would notice much difference downhill from my Demo 8?
Stability wise, I think your biggest issue there is the size of your bike. 447mm reach for a 6'4" rider. I hate to say it, Dukesy, but you need to be looking at about a 480 to 500 reach if you're 6'4". I know we're all different shapes. But yeah, the Merida is a really good bike.
Shimano motor on there.
Do they come in XLs?
I'm pretty sure they do, yeah.
Yeah.
So they come in an XL. And the other thing it might be taking a look at is the downhill style, like e-bikes. So maybe like Specialized Canevo might suit your style a bit more, or High Bike, Husqvarna, and those guys are actually doing downhill e-bikes with a dual crown fork, a lot more slack. So maybe that's something to look at if you're into your downhill stuff.
But I think you need to be getting the bike the correct size first and foremost, I think, so you've got that stability when you're out on the trail, and maybe something like a coil shock bike would be more suitable for you.
And as for the speed and the handling of the bike, as Steve's mentioned, that bike will absolutely fly downhill, probably even quicker than your downhill bike. But Steve's done a really good video on that downhill versus e-bike. Check this one out.
There's a lot of talk about e-bikes that they're really slow and sluggish, but I mean, of course, if you're on a flat pedal-out shootout between a £20 cross-country bike and a £45 e-bike, then that cross-country bike's going to win every time. But what about on a super tough downhill track? Let's go and ride this. There is no doubt that the challenge we've set these two bikes here in San Remo is a proper one. This is a full-on downhill track. It's worthy of World Cup status. And I think overall, I think the track is definitely going to benefit the downhill bike because of those big hits, those big arm wrestle sections, you know, just like this one here. Bonkers.
Grim Reaper, have you heard or seen any e-bike batteries explode or leak? And what warnings are offered to avoid an exploding or leaking battery? Do the batteries get hot when charging or do they get warm? Thank you.
Yeah, I think the batteries that we use on custom-made e-mountain bikes, like the ones we use in the channel, I think there's less likelihood of that. But you do hear of some battery packs which are bought, especially with aftermarket bolt-on motors, which they do need some management. You need a battery management system with it. I've got a friend who's actually got a caravan, and his wife calls it the bomb shelter because it's quite a volatile environment, and with all these chargers, and you're going to have the cells, you're going to match everything up correctly.
Yeah.
So yeah, you do hear of them. I've actually, you've seen e-bike batteries on fire on YouTube.
I remember seeing one, yes, on social. I think it was a road bike on fire on the side of the road, an e-bike, and then there's obviously that guy that burned his house down with an e-bike battery, like an aftermarket one he'd been messing around with. I think he'd been into the battery and it had caught fire and set his house on fire. So yeah, I think the big name batteries are all pretty safe to use. We've never had a problem on like manufactured bike batteries, but there is that risk as any cheap batteries.
Keep an eye out on the instructions. Read the instructions, I think, first and foremost.
Yeah. Off Minds, he's asking, can you use a normal chain on an e-bike, or does it have to be a specific e-bike
It
chain?
actually says Pacific
I know,
chain.
I think that could be taking the mick a bit, but
Right.
if you mean e-bike specific, then you are better using an e-bike one over a standard chain. They're just a lot stronger. The rollers are bigger, the pins are a lot stronger, and the side plates as well are a lot beefier. So if you can stretch that in your chain budget, I would go for the e-bike one over a standard one.
Haven't you done a video?
We have done a video yet, and that's playing on screen now.
Now, generally speaking, you can get 2, sometimes 3 chains to 1 cassette in terms of wear. And the reason for that is as the chain wears, if you replace your chain before it gets to a certain point, you will stop the sprockets, the teeth on the sprockets, front and rear, wearing out prematurely. Now, if you think about this, the chain itself is made of pins, and it's got inner and outer plates, and it's got rollers. Now, those rollers need to sit into the troughs between each of the sprocket teeth.
So that's it for this week's Ask EMBN show. Thanks for sending your questions in. If you guys want to get your questions answered, drop them us in the comments box below. Hashtag Ask EMBN.
Yeah, and especially in relation to this week's questions on bike racks, batteries, and kids' bikes.
Don't forget, if you want to subscribe to EMBN, click the globe in the middle of the screen. But if you want to stick around for a while, check out how to demo an e-bike.